Well, good day everyone, and thank you for coming back to the next video. Guys, I look back on my videos. The last time I put together a video about America and prophecy was about 2 years ago. So I want to just resurrect the same information, nothing new that I've done in the past, but I want to do it, just put out a video now, I think, for people to see the documents and the Bible studies I've put together over the years, that allows us to clearly identify America and prophecy. Now, when I started doing this 5 years ago, I used to get a lot of pushback when I would make these audacious claims about who America is. People thought it was nuts. They said it was replacement theology, all that sort of stuff. But now it seems I'm able to kind of make the claims, and I don't hear people pushing back as much. But this chapter 20. This chapter 48 in Genesis is all about Jacob blesses, Ephraim and Manasseh. It's about the sons of Joseph. The sons of Joseph were given the birthright blessing that none of the other sons of Jacob got. So Joseph essentially received the birthright blessing, and it was prophesied that Joseph's descendants would become a multitude in the midst of the earth. It's not the same blessing that Judah got. Judah was deemed to be the king. Out of Judah would come the king. But out of Joseph would come all the birthright blessings and basically the inheritance to the earth. So in verse 19, this verse 19 here, which we're going to look at in detail, this is the verse that allows us to identify who the United States is, and it's pretty clear. It's right there. But the problem we get is the English, this multitude of nations. If we look at the actual primary English translated words, it reads full of peoples. Ephraim's offspring shall become a nation full of peoples. Okay, so I have a few Bible studies here. I'm going to go through them rather quickly, and then we can look at the Bible to see what's going to happen to the United States. So this is a short 2-page Bible study I have that allows us to understand who the United States is. Obviously, from tradition, if you look to the left here, here's a painting by Israel Zangwill that depicts the United States as being a melting pot, where everybody throughout the whole world has to cross the waters and come to the United States of America. And it's literally depicting America as a nation full of peoples. If you look to the right, you can see that Jacob, who is on his deathbed, and Joseph here, Joseph brings his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, to be blessed by Jacob. And of course, Jacob does the famous thing where he crosses his hands, and Jacob puts his right hand on Ephraim, the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh, the older. And Joseph tries to stop his father and said, no, you got it backwards. And Jacob said, I know my son. And then he utters verse 19. But we can see here that these 2 nations that come from these 2 boys, they began with a symbol of a cross, which that should make sense to us. So my question here is, what nation on the planet is known as a melting pot nation, or a nation full of peoples, and has an older brother nation that is great? So I've done this many times. I'll quickly go over it again. And for people that have studied the Bible for 50 years, when they see this, sometimes there's a little bit of a, no, it can't be that simple attitude. I've shared this with people like at my church, and they don't even want to believe it. They open up the Bible and say, this is a Bible that's full of old information. It's just ancient stuff. There's nothing in the Bible that we can look at. Their excuses, there's nothing in the Bible that we can look at and apply to the modern time. I beg to differ. I mean, most of the Bible, the prophecy, is not fulfilled. So if we look at verse 19, we read it in the ESV. It says, but Jacob refused. He says, I know my son. He will become a people, and he also will be great. However, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. And that word multitude means fullness, full of nations means peoples. So I have an alternate translation using that. So, but Jacob refused, and I added the pronouns with names. But Jacob refuses. I know Joseph. I know Manasseh also will become a people, and Manasseh will be great, or called great. However, Ephraim shall be greater than Manasseh, and Ephraim's descendants shall become a nation full of peoples. Now, let's just jump to the Hebrew here and look. Here's Genesis 48:19. Let's go to the Hebrew. Come all the way down here near the end. These two words, multitude, mellow, fullness, that which fills, full. The NASB translation count, the most prevalent one is full. They decided to put multitude. Only one place did they put multitude, and that's Genesis 48:19. The devil did this to throw us off. Full. Mellow means full. Full of peoples and nations. Okay, let's see what nations says. Peoples. So it's not a stretch to take what I'm saying and say, hey, this is what it really means. Where did I go? Over here. Okay. So once we realize that the United States is the modern representation of the tribe of Ephraim, then this begins to make a little bit of sense here. See, this is the way it was 2,800 years ago with the dual kingdoms. The northern 10 tribes, the lost sheep of the house of Israel that Jesus came to save at his first coming. These were scattered up into Western Europe. Okay, these 10 tribes had a capital named Samaria, and the chief tribe was Ephraim. Then, of course, Judah was down to the south. The capital was Jerusalem. The chief tribe was Judah, with Benjamin mixed in, and the Levites. Now, we know that the northern kingdom became apostate, and God divorced them. God literally divorced the northern kingdom of Israel. He wrote a document. He gave them a document of divorce. I'm sorry, it's in Jeremiah 3. But he didn't divorce Judah. He kicked Judah out of the land for 70 years, but Judah came back. But Israel never really returned. Now, a remnant of Israel, a few, came back with Judah in 536 BC. But the overwhelming majority, that great multitude that Josephus speaks about, they were north of the Euphrates at the time of Josephus, about 100 AD. These are the folks that populated Western Europe. Now you look today and you say, well, how does it look today? Well, here it is off to the right. Here's today. Okay, everybody knows that there is a special tie between the USA and the Jewish state of Israel. So this rings true when you look at it. Somehow someone says, well, this is replacement theology. No, nobody has replaced the Jews. What has happened is the northern kingdom of Israel, the Christians of today, they were found. Jesus says, I have only come for the north. I have only come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. They were found at the foot of the cross. That was the point of Jesus' first coming, was to find these guys and take that divorce document and tear it up, and we have remarried the Son of God. But Judah is still connected with God through the Mosaic covenant. Okay, so let me get back to my... So you can see here, once we realize who Ephraim, the modern version of Ephraim is, we can go to the Bible and say, well, what does the Bible say in the unfulfilled prophecies of the Old Testament that really people in the churches don't really read? What does it say is going to happen to Ephraim? Well, when you read Hosea 5, there's a land issue going on. It's right here. It says, Ephraim shall become a desolation in the day of punishment. I will make it known what is sure. The princes of Judah, it's modern day Israel, have become like those who move a boundary line. I think it's going to be, when they go to war against Syria, they're going to be moving the boundary line. They're going to annex the West Bank, the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights were never the land boundaries of the Jewish state. The Golan Heights, okay, are up in here. But Judah's just going to annex them. That's how I see that being fulfilled. And when this goes down, it's God says, I'm going to pour out my wrath like water. Ephraim is oppressed, crushed in judgment, because he was determined to go after filth. Then when you read Hosea 7, here's more information about Ephraim. And tell me if this doesn't sound like the United States. Ephraim mixes himself with the peoples. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Strangers devour his strength. He knows not. Gray hairs are sprinkled upon him. He knows it not. Ephraim is like a dove, silly and without sense, calling to the world, going to the Assyrian. As they go, I, God, will spread my net over them. Okay. So that's how we can determine who the United States is in Scripture. Now, 100 years ago, 300 years ago, you wouldn't have gotten this. This is a modern interpretation, or this is an interpretation that really only comes to fruition once history has played out. Okay, now many might say, well, I thought the USA is Mystery Babylon. Well, in some respects it is, and we're going to look at that in a second. Now, I have what I refer to as the Genesis 48 test. You guys can download this, and you can ask these 4 questions. I'm not going to go through it. And the only viable answer is the USA and Great Britain. You guys can download this. This is sometimes is very difficult for people who studied the Bible for years. I've spoken to people about this, and they think you're nuts when you bring this up. I've had people tell me, America cannot be found in the Bible. They say America is not here. Well, America does get destroyed. Right here. Right here. That's the destruction of America. Okay. Let me jump to another Bible study I have. It's a short one. It's about Jeremiah's Babylon. So you go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50 and 51, and you read about all these verses that have clues in them, and we can take those clues and we can try to discern. So when I go through Jeremiah 50 and 51, there are these 9 questions that pop up. Let's just go through them real quickly. And every single one you can answer with the United States or New York, I might say. Which nation is considered to be a hammer of the whole earth? Which nation is known for being a destroying nation? What nation is considered to be the last of the nations? What nation has a heritage of being proud? What nation is known for being a land of images? Hollywood. What nation is known for being rich in treasure? Which nation dwells by many bodies of water? That's the kicker. That's what the angel asked Dimitri Duduman when Dimitri Duduman and the angel had the discussion about America. Which nation used to be right with God? Which nation was considered the praise of the whole earth? There's only one nation on the planet, and that's the USA. So I have a picture here of ancient Babylon. Ancient Babylon, landlocked here. This is a picture of the Middle East. The time that ancient Babylon, when Jeremiah prophesied back then, ancient Babylon is not surrounded by waters. Okay? It's not the praise of the whole earth. It's not the last of the nations. Okay? So many biblical scholars hold this prophecy came true at the time from the account of Daniel 5 when the Medes invaded and destroyed. It really didn't destroy Babylon. They destroyed the hierarchy, the leadership, the ruling authority in Babylon. But that didn't happen. The Babylon city was not destroyed back then, but it'll be destroyed in the future. Okay? So here are the scriptures. Here's Jeremiah 50 verse 12, last of the nations. How can ancient Babylon be considered the last of the nations? The hammer of the whole earth. The proud one. The land of images. That's mentioned 4 times, the land of images in Jeremiah 50 and 51. Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand. And here's the kicker. And you who dwell by many waters, rich in treasures, your end has come. Okay, the USA dwells by 5 large bodies of water. You can see it right here. This does not represent ancient Babylon. It doesn't represent the modern Vatican either. Guys, I'm not going to keep going through this. You can just download. Here's Vatican City. Okay? I know that the Vatican actually rules from behind the scenes, but they're not a destroying nation. They're not the last of the nations. Babylon doesn't have, from Revelation 18, is not a cargo. Is not full of cargo. And if modern day Vatican's cargo was, hey, talk about cargo. What about the cargo out on the West Coast? Ship captains. They're all, in Revelation, how the ship captains are going to freak out when Babylon's destroyed. Yeah, all those ship captains are out there in the West Coast. You guys all know about this, right? Out in the West Coast, there's this issue bringing the cargo ships ashore and dumping all their all their goods. That falls right in line with Revelation 18. So the way I put this is the United States is the face of Babylon. There is a deep state Babylonian entity that rules the world, that the United States is sort of the face of that. We became that in the NATO agreement, in my opinion, in 1950. So it's like Babylon has overtaken Ephraim. So Ephraim, the remainder of Ephraim is Christian USA. But this country, the USA, has become secular, apostate in the last 50 years. Okay. All right. So let me jump to Micah chapter 1 and see how we can take this information about Samaria, about Judah, about Israel, and how we can apply it to an ancient prophecy that was never fulfilled. So when you read Micah 1, I claim that Micah 1 is as the end time events begin. So Micah prophesied, 2,700 years ago. His messages were mainly towards Jerusalem, Judah, and Samaria. Remember, Samaria is the capital of the northern kingdom. Okay, they're a mixture of denunciations and prophecies toward both kingdoms and the fall of Israel in 722 BC. Okay, so he prophesied about the destruction of Samaria and Jerusalem. He spoke about how Samaria was rebuked for worshiping idols. Okay, but when we read this prophecy, we can see that it has nothing to do from 2,800 years ago, because none of this was fulfilled 2,800 years ago. So we have to read this, take the people groups and the nations that Micah is referring to, and convert them to what we now know they really are. So just read it for a little bit here. Hear all you peoples, all of you, pay attention, O earth and all that it's in it. And let the Lord God be a witness to you, the Lord from his holy temple. For behold, the Lord is coming out of his place. Don't we hear that? Out of his place in Joel? And will come down and tread upon the high places of the earth, and the mountains will melt under him, the valleys will split open, like wax before the fire, like waters poured down a steep place. This is the same as Habakkuk 3, when he's riding that horse and kills the head of the house of the wicked. Micah 1 and Habakkuk 3 are the same event. They're actually the first seal. And why is the Lord coming? Is it because of satanic people on the earth? I don't know. Look what it says here. It says, all of this is for the transgression of Jacob. That's both houses of Israel. It's all the descendants of the tribes. And for the sins of the house of Israel, the Christian church. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Washington, D.C., the wickedness that we have in Washington, D.C. right now? Or the high places of Judah, the modern Jewish state of Israel? Is it not Jerusalem? Therefore I will make Samaria, Washington, D.C., a heap in the open country, a place for the planting of vineyards. I will pour down her stones into the valley and uncover her foundations. All of her carved images, all those statues we have down there, that obelisk that we have, all of her carved images will be beaten into pieces. All her wages shall be burned with fire, and all her idols will lay waste. So this is the actual, right here, this is the actual fulfillment of this in the real time. This was never fulfilled in times past. Now, there was partial fulfillment with the destruction of ancient Israel. But the Lord did not come down and tread the high places of the earth 2,700 years ago. So we have to read this with a modern fulfillment interpretation. We don't just ignore it. Then we get down here, it says here, make yourselves bald, cut off your hair, for the children of your delight will be snatched from you. Make yourselves as bald as an eagle, for they have been removed. And unfortunately, I removed verse 15 because at the time I didn't know what it meant. I was trying to shorten it up and put it on one page. But verse 15 of Micah 1 speaks about a conqueror, a conquering king. This conqueror that we know is going to be on a horse with a bow, as Habakkuk 3 says. I will again, the second coming, bring a conqueror to you. That conqueror, who we know, is the rider on the white horse from the first seal. Now, I have another Bible study here. It's Micah chapter 2. It's the same thing. It continues on. I put a little kid over here with his covering his eyes up. This is what I see as the modern Christian church. And even the Jews in the synagogues, they don't want to read these prophecies and try to make hay of them. They just want to put their hands over their face and ignore it and think everything will go back to normal. Everybody will get vaccinated and everything's going to go back to normal and it'll all be just hunky-dory fun. Let's have church picnics and call in helicopters and we'll have a grand old time, but not bring up anything to do with biblical prophecy. And so the book of Micah was never destroyed, never fulfilled in times past. Here, let me just jump right to it here. I have the easy to read version here. Trouble will come to those who make plain plans for sin. They lie in their beds making their evil plans. Then when the morning light comes, they do what they've planned, because they have the power to do what they want. That's the people ruling the world right now. They want fields, so they take them. The annexation of the West Bank. They want houses, so they take them. Does this sound familiar? They cheat man and take the house and his land. But the Lord says, look what I'm planning trouble against this family. It would be Jacob, the Western Christian nations, and the Jewish state of Israel. You will not be able to save yourselves. You will stop being proud because of bad times are coming. Does this sound familiar? We jump down to verse 6. The people say, don't prophesy to us. Don't say those bad things about us. Nothing bad will happen to us. Does that sound familiar? But the people of Jacob say, I must say these things. The Lord is losing his patience because of the bad things that you did. These people don't want to listen to me, but if a man comes telling lies, they will accept him. They will forget the false prophet if he comes and says, there will be good times in the future with plenty of wine and beer. Now, I wrote this years ago because I felt like the Christians in this country who were running after a man, like, I'm not against Trump, okay? But Trump was not the answer. I felt like when I read this, this was the MAGA story. You know, it's going to be wonderful. We're going to make America great again. How can we make America great again when it's killed 62 million Americans by ripping these little babies from the womb of their mother? There's no way God is going to bless this nation that does that. It's just not going to happen. Okay, I think I am. Maybe I'm done with this. Okay. This is my updated that. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I had something else. With that, guys, look, I'll let you go. But this is how I see the Bible speaks about America in prophecy. And hopefully here in a little bit, when you search on America, you're going to see a video from today. With that, guys, I'll let you go. Have a great day, and God bless you.